Hello everyone, it's Miss Elaine from the Firehouse Art Center, and I have a salt dough class for you today. So I am in my kitchen and we are going to be making salt dough farm animals, and let me show you my sample. So this is the guy that I made earlier, and I put him in the oven to bake, and he is actually ready to paint. And when we make our animals, I will put him to the side so you guys can see how to make it. But this one's a cow, and we can also make little piggies. But we are visiting the farm this week. So Tuesday we did, that's my son. This is our kitchen, so he's getting some ice. But I told him that if he was gonna come down here, he was gonna have to do the lesson with me. But he is getting ready for lunch. But anyway, so this is what we're doing today. It's a little cow. Hi, Joshua. And we're gonna also make little piggies too. So we're gonna mix the salt dough together so you guys get an idea of how to make your own salt dough. We are going to put our animals together using water and a couple of sculpting tools that you can find in your kitchen. And then after yours gets baked, you have to put it in an oven, so an adult has to help you out, 250 degrees for 1 hour. And after that is done, then you can paint it with tempera paints or acrylic paints. And it's just a really cool little farm animal face. Now the reason that we don't do in this class lots of sculptures of like the full farm animal or sculptures with lots of pieces where they get a little thick is because you just want the thickness, the max thickness, to stay around 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. That way it cracks less, and also you can adhere the pieces a little bit better. Sometimes when you're using clay or salt dough and you do bake those bigger pieces, well, for one thing, they might not fit into your oven. But also during the baking, they might get so dry that they crack and break, and we don't want any of our projects to break. So we do these flat, or like more flat plaques than we do like full sculptures. So I'm going to put this to the side, and I'm going to show you guys the supplies that you need for this class. So you don't need that much, just the normal stuff for salt dough. So flour and salt and a bowl, and also just a little measuring cup for water, because it goes 1 measuring cup, whatever cup you use, of water, lukewarm water, 1 of that same cup of salt, and then 2 of that same cup of flour. So I'm gonna go get my Tupperware, and it's really small. It's not that big. You know what? I'm actually going to measure this out. So I'm going to get a measuring cup. So I'm going to put some water in here, lukewarm water, so it has to be a little bit warm. And we want to be pretty precise. So here it is. This is my Tupperware. I am going to put it into my measuring cup, and if you look, it comes to about 3/4 a cup. So 3/4 of a cup of warm water is going to go into my bowl, just like that. Okay? Now, the next ingredient is the salt, and you're going to do the same amount. So now that we know it's 3/4 of a cup, I can actually just pour my salt in. And as you can see, that is a lot of salt. So while all of these ingredients are edible, you probably don't want to eat it because it's going to taste really gross and it's going to be super salty. Anyway, I'm going to pour that in, and I am going to turn my screen down so you can see the bowl. Just getting all the salt out so I get the right measurement, and then you can see me mix it. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 of that same measurement of the flour. So let me turn this down. You can get a better look at what I am measuring. I just want to make sure that you can see my bowl. There we go. Okay, so here's my bowl. Here's my measuring cup. I'm going to take my flour, and this is just all-purpose flour, the cheapest kind that you can get, because it doesn't have to be like super fancy. So it's 1 of the measurement of water, then salt, same 1, and then it's 2 of flour. So I'm going to show you guys, because I put too much in and I had to put some back, but it's that same measurement, so 3/4. That goes in, so that's only 1. I have to do a second one. So if you guys have been taking class with me before, you'll know that Thursdays are our multimedia class or our 3D class. So we've done salt dough before, and I always do the same recipe, which is 1 of salt, 1 of water to 2 of flour. And it usually works out pretty well, especially if you measure pretty religiously, and you kind of keep an eye on your measurements. The last one I did was a little bit wet, but I think that's because I did put a little bit too much water in. Okay, so here's my bowl right now, and if you want to, you can use a spoon to stir it up. I actually like getting my hands in there and getting a little messy. Plus, it's a really good way to feel if your salt dough is a little too wet or a little too dry. So you just really want to get in there and mix it up. I kind of like doing these classes in my kitchen because it feels like I'm cooking. Okay, so mixing it up. It looks kind of dry, but it's actually not. Once you get your hands in there and you start squishing around, you'll really feel like when you get it perfect. This might be slightly dry, but I don't know yet. I have to mix everything in first. And I am just going to push this back so I can, yeah, there we go. Okay. So, salt dough, mixing your salt dough is a really great lesson in problem solving, because you really have to figure out, how do you solve the problem of it being too sticky? You have to add a little bit more flour. How do you solve the problem of it being too dry? Well, you add a little bit more water. But you don't want to add too much at one time, because then you might just be going back and forth and adding water if it's too dry, and having it be too wet and having to add more flour. And at the end of it, you have like a big gigantic bowl of salt dough, which we don't want because we don't want to waste anything. So if you feel like you might need a little bit more water, add a little bit of water at a time, and then reassess. Okay, so I'm mixing this, and I can tell it's definitely not too wet, because when I get my fingers in there and I come out, I don't have any like big clumps of clay stuck to me. If anything, it might be a little too dry, but it's definitely good enough to work with. As you can see, there isn't a bunch of stuff cracking off or breaking off. I might add just a little bit more water. So I'm going to get some more water in my cup. And I'm going to show you. See, it's not a lot. I'm just going to pour it right there. I don't want to add too much, because then I will have to go in and add flour again if it's too much. This I think is good. Teeny weeny bits of water at a time. Okay. So we're gonna make 2 of these. We're gonna make a cow, like the one that I made already, and a pig. And this should definitely be enough for both animals. As you see, big, huge ball of dough. I'm gonna go ahead and split it in half. So that's a lot. I'm actually going to go ahead and split it into 4ths. And then maybe we could even make 4 animals. Okay, so I'm gonna split into halves. Then I'm gonna split this in half and this in half. And then we will have 4ths. Okay, there we go. So that's probably enough to make 4 animals right there. I'm gonna go ahead and put that to the side. This is my tray. I'm gonna bake it in my little toaster oven. So since I'm in the kitchen, I might as well put it on the tray already. I'm gonna get some aluminum foil. Now you can use aluminum foil or you can use parchment paper. You just don't want it to stick to your pan. And see, it's just like baking cookies. Okay, so I'm gonna grab one of the balls of clay that I have, and I'm gonna roll it into a ball, mostly just because I like doing that. It's fun to do. So you can roll it in your hands like this. If you have a clean surface, a flat surface that's non-porous, you can roll it out on the surface like this, and just go ahead and make a ball. You're going to separate this into 3rds. So it's going to go 1, 2 cuts, and you're going to have 1, 2, 3 pieces, okay? So you just pinch 1/3 off, and you can roll that into a ball. And another 1/3. Roll that into a ball. Now it doesn't have to be exact because this kind of feels like it's a little bit bigger than the last ball that I made. And if you look, it is. And then roll the last one, just like that. Okay, so what you're gonna do, and I am making my cow first. So let's see if I can put this somewhere that you guys can see. There he is. Okay, so I'm going to take these balls off, and this one I'm going to flatten out like a pancake. Okay. And I'm going to put it down. And you can flatten it out a little bit more while it's on the tray. Just like that. And for the next steps, you want to make sure that you have a little water. So that you can use the water to stick your other pieces on. Okay, so I'm going to take the smallest ball that I have, and I'm actually going to pinch a little bit off of that. Roll it back into a ball, and flatten this guy out too. So I'm just rolling it in my hands like this, getting it pretty flat. If you wanted to, you can put it on your aluminum foil and flatten it out. Just like that. Oh, so wet. And it's actually going to go right there, and that's going to be the nose of your cow. So as I'm flattening it out, I'm actually going to turn it into more of an oval shape. Okay, so there's my oval shape. Now I'm going to take some water. I'm going to wet my fingers. And let me just move it. So I just dip my finger in the water container just like that. And so my finger is a little wet, and I'm going to wet the area that I'm going to stick the oval to. and then I'm going to press it on. So wetting the clay or the salt dough just helps the pieces adhere, and if you want, you can kind of smush it on there with a little bit of water too, and kind of make sure it sticks, because when it bakes, you don't want the two pieces to separate. So you want to make sure that you connect it, but you don't want to flatten it all the way out. So you'll see, I'm going to lift this up so you can see from the side view. You can still see that this is higher than this one, because this one is overlapping this one, so it's layered on top of it. So you don't want to flatten it so much that it becomes a part of it and you lose that definition. Okay, so that is my cow's head. So if you look, we've made the cow's head and his nose right here. I'm going to pinch a little bit more off of that other ball, and I'm just making a little tongue for my cow, and I'm going to add it to the back so it's like it's sticking its tongue out. Okay, just like that. Now hopefully you have some tools to use. And you don't need fancy clay tools. Like, you can use things that you find in the kitchen. I have a chopstick, and I am going to make holes for his nose. And I'm actually going to hold the chopstick kind of at a diagonal, because I want these guys to be kind of like big ovals. Okay, so there's that for his nose. And so now we have his head, his nose, his tongue, and the holes for his nose. Now we're going to build out his ears, his horns, give him some hair, eyebrows, and then make his eyes. So grab the remainder of the clay from this, from the first ball that you made. So, like, you know, you still have some left, and you're going to pinch and shape an oval that is about this big. Now this is for his ear. You're going to pinch this in so it creates kind of like a little pocket like that. Wet your fingers, find out where you want your ear to go, wet that, and press it on, just like that. And smooth it out a little so that you make sure that it stays stuck when it bakes. And you're going to make another one. So you're going to use your fingers and kind of pinch into an oval shape, just like that. And then you are going to press in and kind of fold it in like that. So if you look, makes a shape like that. And that makes it look like his ear is folded over. You're gonna wet the side for his ear like that, and then smush it on. So now our cow has 2 ears. Now we have to give him his horns. So for his horns, you pinch another piece off and kind of roll it into a cone shape. So like a 3-dimensional triangle like that. And you can add it right here where the ear meets the head. And you can just pinch it on and smooth it with your finger or the back of your finger. Okay, so now he has 1 horn, 2 ears, a nose, his tongue, and we're going to give him his other horn. So just kind of pinch a triangle cone shape and get a little water and kind of smush that guy back on. And now he has 2 horns. Okay, It's ready for us to make some hair. So for hair, you just pinch a little bit off and you roll little snakes. And you want them to be pretty thin. So you can roll them in your hands like this. And you'll see they're like little worms. So you can roll them and then split them off. You can add them as hair. So this is the first one I made. I think I can actually get 3 pieces of hair out of this one, because I'll just keep rolling it like this to make my little tiny worms or snakes. You can also roll them on your non-porous surface like that to get them into skinny little snakes, and then pinch it off and add it. And I'm going to move it closer so you guys can see. So that is what he looks like so far. So I'm going to add 3 more. So I'm going to pinch a little bit more off. I'm going to roll this into a snake. So there's lots of ways to do it. Guy. So I'm kind of smoothing it to the top of his head and then pressing it down. And the last one is going to go right there. Okay. So that is what my cow looks like right now. So now he has his hair. Let's give him eyebrows. So pinch a little bit off and roll them into a snake. Split the snake in half, and you can put some water and give him some eyebrows. Kind of smush that on. Then you can take your tools, whatever you want to use. This is the back end of a paintbrush, and you can make little eyes like that. So that is my cow. So I'm going to take this one and I am going to put it in the oven right now. So I'm putting it in the oven, and I am I'm going to first preheat my oven to 250 degrees, and I'm going to set the timer for 1 hour. So you can bake these for 1 hour. If it still is a little soft, it kind of depends on how thick your sculpture is. So if your sculpture is really thick, it might take longer than an hour. You might have to bake it just a little bit longer, but that totally depends on how you made yours. I'm going to get some more aluminum foil out. And we're going to get started with our piggy. Now our piggy is done pretty similarly. You're going to make that first round circle, and so I'm going to take this ball and I'm actually going to split it. Now it might have dried a little bit, so I'm going to add a little bit of water and roll it in my hands to make that ball. I'm going to flatten it out. Just like that. So now I have a circle. Now I'm going to take a smaller ball, and if it's a little dry, I just dip my fingers in the water and kind of get it a little wetter, and then roll that out. Now this is going to be the pig's nose, so you want to flatten it out. This one's going to be more of a circle. You wet the center where you're going to add it. If you want, you can score it, which means just doing like little cross mark lines. That just gives it more surface to stick onto. So I just kind of scraped up the area that I was going to add the nose to. And then I went the underside of the nose and scraped this area too. So those are just a couple of extra things that you can do to help your pieces stick. And then I flattened it out. So you might have heard that. That's my toaster oven. It's saying your oven is ready to put your salt dough in. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it into the toaster oven. So this is the start of our pig. So you want to flatten out the sides like right here. Just kind of make sure that it's attached. Just like that. So it's basically a circle with a smaller circle inside. Sticking my cow in. Then I take whatever tool I want to use, and I'm just going to make 2 circles in the center. You want to make them bigger. Just like that. I want to make funny big eyes for this cow. So I'm going to take a little bit of clay and I am going to pinch it into an oval shape. Then I'm going to add it to where I want his eyes. That might be a little bit too big. So as you're putting your salt dough sculpture together, you know, if you find that you made something too big or too small, then just fix it. It's okay. Okay, so there's one of his eyes, and I'm gonna make the other one. And you can try and make it the same shape and size if you want, or you can try and make it smaller or bigger, and maybe it can look a little funny. But now I've got 2 circles, and I'm going to put the holes right there for the eyeballs. There. So I'm going to move it closer so you guys can see. That's what my pig looks like now. I kind of like those eyes. That's funny. I'm going to take my smallest paintbrush, the back, and I'm going to make his mouth. And I'm going to make a smiley mouth. Now, instead of drawing with it like a pencil, I'm actually pressing into it so that it's like a series of dots. But that way, if I were to drag it all the way through, I'd end up with a big lump of clay right here. But instead, what I'm doing is I'm pressing the clay down into the rest of the clay. Okay, so there's my piggy. He's got eyes, nose, mouth. Now we got to give him ears. And I'm going to give him triangular ears. So pinch, you know, kind of like that amount. There's no real definite size that you want to make your ears, but I'm going to make one of them poking up and then the other one I'm going to make folded down. So find out where you want to put your ear and go ahead and add it. So I keep wetting the surface before I add it just to make sure I can kind of smush it on there and it attaches. That's one of his ears. I'll flatten that guy out right there. And I'm going to do his other ear. So I'm going to pinch it like a triangle. And I'm pressing this part down so there's something to attach to. Wetting that. And then I'm going to add this and smooth it on. Like that. And I'm going to turn this so that the ear kind of like turns over itself. Just like that. So I kind of folded the triangle over. So one of his ears is poking up and one of his ears is kind of folded down. If you want, you can add like hair to the top of his head, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think he looks good and he is done. So that is our lesson today for the pig and then the cow. The cow's actually sitting in the oven, getting all dry and setting. And since we have time, I'm going to move my supplies to the side from putting away my flour so that it doesn't spill everywhere. And then I'm going to get my paints out and I'm going to paint the cow. Now, let's grab this. Okay, so I'm going to get my paint supplies. I'm going to move my pig, put him next to the toaster oven so I can bake him. And I have my paint tray and my cow, and I've got my little pots of paint. Now these are acrylic, but you can use tempera. You can even use markers if you wanted to, or you can use watercolor. If you use watercolor, it's not going to be as vibrant because the watercolor is actually going to absorb into the clay. So you can pour a little black out, and the first thing I should do is paint with some white. Okay. So I guess I'll just paint white all in this area. Now I had optional supplies like Cheerios and black beans. So if you have black beans, you could actually add them as the eyes of the cow. Another optional thing for the pig is you can put the Cheerios in his nose for where his nose holes are. Nostrils, I guess. Okay, so I am going to keep painting this guy. I'm going to make sure, this guy looks like a cookie. Kind of got a little browned. And I'm going to add a little bit of white and gray, or black to make a gray color. I'm going to paint his horns gray. Just like that. Okay, rinse out my brush. And this time I'm going to get pink because I think I want to do the insides of his ears pink and his nose. Oh no, my pink is all dry. That's okay, because let's check my red. Oh, there's a pink right here. Okay. Okay, so I'm painting his nose pink. I don't know why that's doing that. That's like lifting up the color. And I mix my own pink. That pink's too light. Okay. There, that's better. So you can paint your animals whatever color you want. But I am painting my cow with a pink nose. And I'm going to do the insides of his ears pink. And I'm going to do his tongue darker pink. That's going to go right there. Okay, now that's done. Now I can go back with the black. So the black, I'm going to paint some spots on him. And I think he might be done. So I'm going to leave his hair and his eyebrows brown, the color of the salt dough. And I'm going to go in with the back of my paintbrush, and I'm going to dip that in the paint, and I'm going to put that into where his eyes are, right there. And that, oh, and here too for the nose holes. And that is my cow. So I'm going to turn the screen up, and hopefully you guys were able to make, but at what point do we take out to paint? So hopefully you guys were able to make a pig and a cow, and I'm going to show you this guy so that you can see it. And I really like this one. He's really cute. But, so we hear 250 degrees to bake for 1 hour, but at what point do you take it out to paint? You know what usually happens is I will do these and I will leave them in the oven and forget about them. So basically what they're doing is they're baking for that hour, and then the oven turns off and then it kind of cools. You want to make sure that your salt dough item is cooled before you take it out to paint it, just because you don't want to burn yourself. So I usually leave it in there, you know, an hour is probably, I usually forget about it and it's been in there for an hour, but you could probably take it out after like 30 minutes because it probably would have cooled down at that point. As far as paints, you can use any paints that you have. You can use tempera, you can use acrylic, you can use like these cheapy pot paints that I had from different projects that I've collected through the years. So all of those will work. Even watercolor will work. But when you use watercolor, it does get absorbed into the salt dough really quickly, and it becomes more of like a pastel color. Depending on how intense your paint is, you may get just a very light coloration, but it will color it. So watercolor actually does work as well. Trying to think if there's anything else. You know, these are really cool. I've used sparkly paints on them, so I've made fish, and you can do like different kind of patterns on it, and then you can paint the sparkly paint over it. And the best part is because where it goes down into the cracks is a little bit darker, and then when you paint over the parts that are raised, it's a little bit lighter. So you get this like really cool texture, like shiny, luminous, metallic look when you use metallic tempers or acrylics or even watercolors, which is really cool. So that is my little cow guy, and grab the pig. So I'm going to do this one and paint this one. So obviously, I mean, I'm probably going to do all over pink on this one, even though there are pigs that are totally like lots of different colors. But I think I'm probably going to paint this guy pink, and I will try and show it to you guys. Our next class, so our next class is Tuesday. So we have 2 more weeks of this, so 4 more classes. So Tuesday again is going to be a drawing class, and I am thinking that we are probably going to do another famous artist one. So we'll have a drawing class and then a multimedia class on Thursday. So drawing and painting on Tuesday, multimedia on Thursday. And then the week after that, we'll have another theme with Tuesday and Thursday class. I am still trying to figure out classes for going forward into the fall, but we're hoping to have it all nailed down in the next week. Things have been changing so quickly with the schools, and we are trying to mirror them in the precautions that they're taking. So unless it's going to be outdoor classes, we probably won't have in-person classes for a little bit, even though our space is completely fine, and we would just have 1 group per day, leaving us time to disinfect. We are going to mirror the school system just to stay safe. And once again, Art Walk is happening this weekend. We're having Summer on the Streets. It'll be this Saturday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. We'll have art market booths all throughout the downtown on Main Street in the closed section areas. We'll have 3 stages with music going on this weekend. And then the week following will be another kids art activity weekend, and we'll have the activity kits with the coloring pages made by local Colorado artists of Colorado and Longmont scenes that you guys can color. We do have other activities that are included in the bags, and the bags are completely, well, other than the coloring pages, they're different than the bags that we had out last time. So even if you got one the first week, maybe come back and get another bag, and maybe just don't get the coloring pages. But yeah, hopefully we'll see you at Art Walk Summer on the Streets this weekend, 5 to 8 p.m. I will be walking around probably at the Firehouse Art booth, which is at 4th and Main, the northwest corner in front of Independent Financial Bank. So if you're out and around, come find me there, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next class. So I'll wave to you with my salto hands. Thanks for coming to class, and I will see you guys later.